Hi everyone, tonight we're diving into one of America's most controversial business empires. Drop your city and local time in the comments below. Now get comfortable, dim those lights, and let's walk together through a century of ambition, controversy, and billion-dollar deals. You're standing in Queens, New York in 1923. The air smells like sawdust and fresh paint from all the construction happening around you. Elizabeth Trump, a 43-year-old widow with calloused hands and steel in her spine, is about to make a decision that will change American history. Her husband Frederick died 5 years ago from the Spanish flu, leaving her with 3 young children and a handful of empty lots. But Elizabeth isn't the crying type. She looks at her 18-year-old son Fred and sees something burning in his eyes. The same hunger that drove his father to flee Germany and build a fortune in the Klondike gold rush. "We're going to build houses," she tells him. Not just any houses. Houses that will make them rich. Together, they found E. Trump & Son in 1923. It sounds fancy, but their office is basically a glorified garage that smells like coffee and dreams. Elizabeth handles the books with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker, while Fred swings hammers and sweet-talks contractors. Their first project is a single house in Woodhaven, Queens. It cost them $800 to build. That's like dropping $14,000 today on what's essentially a very expensive bet. The house sells for $7,000. That's not a typo. They just made almost 9 times their investment. It's like buying a lottery ticket and winning a Tesla. Fred looks at his mother and grins. "We're going to need more lumber." By 1924, their company's officially called Elizabeth Trump & Son because apparently even in the roaring 20s, you need your mum to co-sign your business loans. But Fred isn't embarrassed. He's smart. Elizabeth Trump has something most 19-year-old contractors don't have: credibility, connections, and the kind of maternal authority that makes grown men pay their bills on time. The formula is simple: buy cheap land in Queens and Brooklyn, build solid, middle-class houses, sell them to families desperate for a piece of the American dream. It's not glamorous work. Fred comes home every night covered in dust and splinters, his hands permanently stained with wood stain. But every morning, he wakes up a little richer than the day before. They're not building mansions. These are modest homes for teachers, clerks and factory workers, people who save every penny for years just to own 4 walls and a roof. Fred understands something that will make him millions. Regular people want nice things too. They just need someone to build those nice things at prices they can actually afford. The business grows like weeds after rain. By 1926, they're constructing entire developments. Fred has learned to think big while starting small. Each project funds the next one. Each house sold becomes seed money for 2 more. It's a beautiful cycle, like compound interest with hammers. But Fred is already dreaming bigger. While other contractors are happy building one house at a time, he's imagining hundreds, thousands, entire neighborhoods that didn't exist before he arrived. The boy who started with an $800 loan is about to become the man who reshapes New York's skyline. All because his mother believed in him, and he believed in the power of a good, affordable house. You're watching Fred Trump in 1933 and the country is falling apart around him. Banks are collapsing like dominoes. 1 in 4 Americans is out of work. Bread lines stretch around city blocks. Most builders are going bankrupt or changing careers. But Fred? Fred is opening a supermarket. Trump Market in Woodhaven. Queens doesn't look like much from the outside. Just another storefront with hand-painted signs and windows full of promises. But inside, it's revolutionary. Self-service grocery shopping is the TikTok of the 1930s. Everyone's talking about it. Nobody really understands it. And Fred Trump is betting his future on it. The slogan is pure genius: serve yourself and save. It's 3 words that capture the entire spirit of Depression-era America. People are broke, they're proud, and they want control over their own destiny. Even if that destiny is just choosing their own potatoes. The store is packed from day one. Customers wander the aisles like kids in a candy shop, marveling at the freedom to touch the merchandise, compare prices, and make their own choices. Fred stands behind the register, watching people discover the joy of grocery shopping, and he's already calculating profit margins in his head. Within 6 months, Trump Market is the most successful grocery store in Queens. King Cullen, the supermarket chain that inspired Fred's venture, comes knocking with an offer he can't refuse. They buy him out for enough money to fund his next big idea. Fred takes the check, looks around his bustling store one last time, and makes a promise to himself. He'll never name another business after Trump again. It's too risky to put your family name on something you might sell. But the grocery money is burning a hole in his pocket. While America struggles through the worst economic crisis in its history, Fred sees opportunity everywhere. Desperate sellers, cheap labour, bargain prices on materials. It's like Black Friday but for real estate developers, and it lasts for years. He starts buying up distressed properties, foreclosed lots, abandoned projects, anything he can get for pennies on the dollar. Other developers think he's crazy. Who builds houses during a depression? Fred does, because he understands something they don't. The depression won't last forever, but the houses he builds today will. His strategy is brilliant and brutal. Buy low, build cheap, sell to families who are finally stable enough to consider home ownership. By the time most Americans realize the economy is recovering, Fred already owns half of Queens. He's like a real estate time traveler, buying today what will be valuable tomorrow. The irony isn't lost on him. The same economic catastrophe that's destroying other businesses is making him rich. Every foreclosure notice is a business opportunity. Every desperate seller is a chance to expand his empire. Fred Trump isn't just surviving the Great Depression, he's using it as fertilizer for his growing fortune. Years later, historians will debate whether Fred Trump was a visionary or just lucky. The truth is simpler. He was hungry. Hungry enough to take risks when everyone else was playing it safe. Hungry enough to see opportunity in other people's misery. And hungry enough to build the foundation of what will eventually become a billion-dollar empire, one cheap lot at a time. You're standing on a military base in 1942, watching Fred Trump inspect barracks like a general reviewing troops. Except these troops are carpenters, and this general is about to become a millionaire by housing American heroes. World War II is raging, soldiers need places to sleep, and Fred has just figured out how to turn patriotism into profit. The government contracts are massive, bigger than anything Fred has ever seen. The military needs housing for thousands of soldiers, sailors, and defense workers. They need it fast, they need it cheap, and they need it built by someone who won't ask too many questions about overtime pay or profit margins. Fred Trump raises his hand. Building military housing isn't glamorous work. These aren't luxury apartments or custom homes. They're basic, functional structures designed to house American servicemen. But there's beauty in the simplicity. No fancy finishes, no custom carpentry, no clients changing their minds every 5 minutes. Just raw construction at industrial scale. Fred's crews work around the clock. The sound of hammers and saws echoes across the construction sites like a mechanical symphony. Lumber trucks arrive in convoys. Concrete mixers churn like giant washing machines. It's construction as warfare, and Fred is winning every battle. The money flows like water. Government contracts pay on time, in full, with minimal haggling. After years of dealing with penny-pinching homebuyers and nitpicky inspectors, working with Uncle Sam feels like Christmas morning every day. Fred's bank account grows fatter than a Thanksgiving turkey. But the real genius isn't in the contracts themselves. It's in what Fred does with the money. While other contractors blow their wartime profits on fancy cars and vacation homes, Fred reinvests every dollar back into his business. He buys more land, hires more workers, and positions himself for the construction boom he knows is coming after the war. He's thinking 5 moves ahead, like a chess master playing against amateurs. When the war ends, millions of soldiers will come home looking for houses. The government that paid him to build barracks will need him to build neighborhoods. The same skills that housed American heroes will house American families. Fred also learns valuable lessons about dealing with bureaucracy. Government contracts require patience, paperwork, and the ability to navigate red tape like a submarine captain avoiding depth charges. These skills will serve him well in the decades to come, when dealing with city planners, zoning boards, and politicians becomes as important as knowing how to pour concrete. By 1945, Fred Trump is no longer just a local contractor. He's a major player in New York's construction industry. His company has built thousands of units, employed hundreds of workers, and earned millions in government contracts. The boy who started with an $800 loan is now a man with enough money to buy entire city blocks. The war ends, but Fred's empire is just beginning. All those returning soldiers will need homes. All those defense workers will want to upgrade from cramped apartments to spacious houses. and Fred Trump, with his deep pockets and deeper ambitions, will be ready to serve them. For a price, of course. You're driving through Brooklyn in 1947, past endless rows of identical red brick apartments that stretch toward the horizon like a real estate army. These are Fred Trump's towers, built with government money, designed for middle-class families, and generating profits that would make a pharaoh jealous. Fred has discovered the secret formula for American wealth. Take government money, build affordable housing, and watch the dollars multiply like rabbits. The Federal Housing Administration is basically Santa Claus for real estate developers. They guarantee loans, subsidize construction, and promise developers like Fred that if they build affordable housing, Uncle Sam will make sure they get paid. It's socialism for builders and capitalism for everyone else. Fred loves it. Shore Haven in Bensonhurst is Fred's masterpiece. 23 six-story buildings housing over 1,400 families. From above, it looks like a small city designed by someone who believes in right angles and efficiency over beauty. But Fred isn't trying to win architecture awards. He's trying to house America's growing middle class and get rich doing it. The apartments aren't fancy, no marble countertops or walk-in closets, just solid, functional spaces for families who've never owned anything before. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen big enough for a table, and windows that actually open. For tenants coming from cramped tenements or their parents' basements, these apartments feel like palaces. Fred walks through Shore Haven like a landlord emperor, checking on his kingdom. Maintenance requests, rent collections, tenant complaints. He handles it all with the efficiency of a Swiss watch. Every apartment filled is money in the bank. Every happy tenant is a referral for his next project. The profits are insane. The government subsidizes construction costs, guarantees the loans, and even helps with marketing. Fred's risk is minimal, but his returns are massive. It's like being given a casino where you're guaranteed to win, and the house always pays you to play. But Fred isn't content with just collecting rent. He's already planning his next development. Beach Haven in Coney Island will be even bigger. 2,000 apartments across multiple buildings. More families, more rent, more government money flowing into his bank accounts like a golden river. The tenants love him because he provides clean, affordable housing in a market where decent apartments are harder to find than honest politicians. The government loves him because he delivers projects on time and under budget. The banks love him because he pays his loans like clockwork. Everyone wins, and Fred wins biggest of all. Years later, critics will accuse Fred of taking advantage of government programs designed to help working families. But Fred sees it differently. He's providing a service, housing American families, creating jobs for construction workers, and building communities where none existed before. If he gets rich doing it, that's just good business. By 1950, Fred Trump owns thousands of apartments across Brooklyn and Queens. His empire is built on a simple principle: give people what they need at prices they can afford, and they'll make you wealthy beyond imagination. It's capitalism with a conscience, assuming your conscience is okay with making millions off government subsidies. You're sitting in Fred Trump's office in 1955, watching him negotiate with city officials like a poker player holding a royal flush. The room smells like coffee and ambition. Maps of Brooklyn cover the walls, marked with red pins showing Fred's properties and blue pins showing where he wants to build next. This isn't just real estate development. This is urban warfare with building permits. Fred has mastered the art of working the system. Every city official knows his name. Every bank president takes his calls. Every contractor in New York wants to work for him because Fred pays well and pays on time. But more importantly, Fred knows how to make everyone feel like they're getting a piece of his success. The secret is relationships. Fred doesn't just hire contractors, he makes them partners in his vision. He doesn't just apply for permits, he explains how his projects will benefit the whole community. More jobs, more tax revenue, more families housed, more neighborhoods improved. Fred sells dreams wrapped in blueprints. Take Trump Village in Coney Island. 7 23-story towers housing 4,000 families on land that used to be a train depot. The project is massive, complicated, and expensive. Most developers would break it into smaller pieces or walk away entirely. Fred sees it as the crown jewel of his empire. The negotiations take years. City planners, community boards, environmental assessments, financing arrangements, Every detail has to be perfect because one mistake could kill the entire project. Fred attends every meeting, reviews every document, and charms every official. He's part businessman, part politician, and part evangelist for his own vision. When critics complain about the height of the buildings or the density of the development, Fred doesn't argue. He listens, nods thoughtfully, and then explains how his project will solve problems they didn't even know they had. Traffic concerns? His buildings include parking garages, school overcrowding. His property taxes will fund new classrooms, community services. He's planning retail space for local businesses. The financing is pure genius. Fred structures deals that use government money to build privately owned housing that generates market rate returns. It's like getting a loan from your parents to start a business that competes with their store. Technically legal, morally questionable, but undeniably profitable. By the time Trump Village opens in 1964, Fred has spent a decade turning his vision into reality. The buildings tower over Coney Island like concrete monuments to his ambition. Each apartment generates monthly rent that flows directly into his accounts. Each tenant represents steady income for decades to come. Fred stands on the boardwalk looking up at his creation and feels something between pride and hunger. Trump Village proves he can build at any scale, in any neighborhood, with any level of complexity. The boy from Queens has become the king of Brooklyn real estate. But kingdoms, Fred knows, are meant to be expanded. The success of Trump Village attracts attention from politicians, competitors, and most importantly his son Donald. The young man who's been watching from the sidelines is ready to join the family business. Fred smiles, thinking about what they'll build together. Trump Village is impressive, but it's just the beginning. The next generation is ready to take the Trump empire to places Fred never imagined. You're watching 20-year-old Donald Trump walk through a construction site in 1966, his leather dress shoes somehow spotless despite the mud and debris around him. Fred watches his son with the intensity of a hawk studying its prey. Every gesture, every question, every interaction with workers is a lesson in the Trump way of doing business. This isn't just job training, this is the transfer of an empire. Donald doesn't start in the mailroom or filing paperwork. Fred throws him directly into the deep end of real estate development. Rent collection, tenant disputes, contractor negotiations, city permit applications. Donald sees it all, learns it all, and slowly begins to understand that real estate isn't just about building things. It's about building relationships, managing money, and never ever backing down from a fight. The lessons are practical and ruthless. When a tenant tries to skip rent, Fred shows Donald how to be firm without being cruel. When a contractor delivers substandard work, Fred demonstrates how to demand better, without destroying the relationship. When city officials create bureaucratic delays, Fred teaches Donald that sometimes you need to apply pressure through other channels. But the most important lesson isn't about business tactics, it's about thinking bigger. Fred has built an empire in the outer boroughs of New York, but Manhattan remains unconquered territory. The real money, the real prestige, the real power lies across the river in those gleaming towers of steel and glass. Fred has always been too cautious to take that leap. Donald has no such reservations. Fred watches his son study maps of Manhattan like a general planning an invasion. Donald doesn't just see buildings, he sees opportunities. Empty lots that could house luxury apartments, aging hotels that could be transformed into modern palaces, commercial spaces that could be reimagined as mixed-use developments. The hunger in Donald's eyes reminds Fred of himself at that age, but amplified. The relationship isn't always smooth. Donald has ideas that Fred considers too risky, too expensive, too ambitious. Fred prefers steady returns on proven strategies. Donald wants to roll the dice on projects that could either make them incredibly rich or completely bankrupt. It's the eternal tension between experience and ambition, caution and vision. But Fred is smart enough to recognize that the real estate business is changing. The safe, government-subsidized housing projects that made him wealthy are becoming harder to develop and less profitable to own. The future belongs to developers who can navigate private financing, luxury markets, and international investments. In other words, the future belongs to Donald. By 1968, Donald has officially joined the Trump Organization as an executive. The transition isn't ceremonial, it's operational. Donald takes over day-to-day management of several properties, while Fred focuses on long-term strategy and political relationships. The father-son partnership combines Fred's experience with Donald's ambition, creating a business machine more powerful than either man could operate alone. Fred still makes the final decisions, but Donald's influence grows stronger every month. When city officials call the Trump Organization, they're just as likely to speak with Donald as with Fred. When contractors bid on projects, they pitch to both men. When investors consider partnerships, they evaluate the entire Trump family as a package deal. The dynasty is taking shape. Fred built the foundation with government contracts and affordable housing. Donald will build the skyscraper with private deals and luxury developments. Together, they represent continuity and change, tradition and innovation, Brooklyn pragmatism and Manhattan dreams. The Trump Organization is no longer just Fred's company. It's becoming something bigger, bolder, and infinitely more dangerous. You're standing in the lobby of the Commodore Hotel in 1974, and it's like being inside a beautiful woman who's been sick for years. The marble floors still gleam, but they're cracked. The crystal chandeliers still sparkle, but half the bulbs are burned out. The mahogany walls still shine, but they can't hide the smell of decline that clings to everything like cigarette smoke. This hotel is dying, and 28-year-old Donald Trump is about to perform the business equivalent of resurrection surgery. The Commodore sits right next to Grand Central Terminal, which should make it prime real estate. Instead, it's a 2,000-room monument to New York's decay. The city is broke, crime is rampant, and tourists avoid Manhattan like it's infected with plague. Most developers look at the Commodore and see an expensive nightmare. Donald sees the opportunity of a lifetime. The hotel loses money like a broken slot machine. The owners are desperate to sell. The city is desperate for tax revenue. The Hyatt hotel chain is desperate for a Manhattan presence. Donald, with his father's financial backing and his own titanium-plated confidence, walks into this mess like a man who's never heard the word impossible. The deal he structures is more complex than a Swiss watch and more beautiful than a Manhattan sunset. Donald will buy the building for almost nothing, tear out everything except the steel skeleton, rebuild it as a luxury Hyatt, and lease the land from the city for decades while paying almost no property taxes. It's like getting a free Lamborghini and having someone else pay for the gas. But putting the deal together requires skills that weren't taught in business school. Donald has to convince the city that giving him massive tax breaks will somehow generate more revenue than collecting normal taxes. He has to persuade Hyatt that Manhattan is ready for luxury tourism again. He has to satisfy his father that this isn't just an expensive hobby for a bored rich kid. The negotiations take years. Meetings with city officials who treat Donald like an annoying child. Presentations to Hyatt executives who question whether anyone under 30 can handle a project this complicated. Endless paperwork that makes filing your taxes look like a kindergarten assignment. Most people would give up. Donald doubles down. Fred Trump watches his son navigate these treacherous waters with a mixture of pride and terror. The financial risk is enormous. If the project fails, it could destroy everything Fred has built over 4 decades. But if it succeeds, it could transform the Trump Organization from a local real estate company into a national brand. It's the biggest gamble of both their lives. The construction is a nightmare wrapped in chaos and topped with delays. Cost overruns, labour disputes, design changes, permit problems. Every possible catastrophe happens at least twice. Donald spends his days at the construction site, his nights in meetings with lawyers, and his weekends reviewing budgets that keep growing like tumour cells. But slowly, impossibly, the Commodore transforms. The tired old hotel becomes the gleaming Grand Hyatt, with a mirrored facade that reflects Manhattan like a funhouse mirror designed by angels. The lobby features waterfalls, marble, and enough polish to blind passing satellites. When it opens in 1980, it's like watching the resurrection of both the hotel and Donald's reputation. The Grand Hyatt is an instant success. Business travellers, tourists, and New Yorkers flock to the reborn hotel. Room rates that seemed impossibly optimistic suddenly look conservative. The restaurants are packed, the conference rooms are booked solid, and Donald's investment returns are better than winning lottery tickets. More importantly, Donald has proven something to himself, his father, and the entire New York real estate community. The kid from Queens can play in Manhattan. The son of a middle-class housing developer can compete with the biggest names in luxury real estate. The Trump Organization is no longer just a family business. It's become a force that can reshape skylines and redefine neighbourhoods. You're riding the escalator in Trump Tower in 1983, surrounded by more pink marble than exists in most quarries, and the word subtle has obviously been banned from this building's vocabulary. The 6-story atrium soars above you like a shopping mall, designed by someone who thinks Vegas is too understated. Brass gleams like captured sunlight. Mirrors multiply everything into infinity. A waterfall tumbles down the back wall like nature decided to show off. This isn't just a building. It's Donald Trump's autobiography written in steel, glass, and enough gold leaf to bankrupt a small nation. The location is perfect and perfectly expensive. 5th Avenue and 56th Street, where tourists and billionaires cross paths like characters in a very expensive movie. The land cost more than most people's entire net worth. But Donald understood something that his father's generation never grasped. In Manhattan, location isn't just important, it's everything. Building Trump Tower requires destruction before creation. The site used to house Bonwit Teller, a department store with Art Deco sculptures that preservationists wanted to save. Donald promises to donate the sculptures to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Instead, his demolition crews accidentally destroy them while removing them. Oops. The preservationists are furious, but Donald has learned an important lesson. Sometimes it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. The design is pure Trump. Where other developers build apartments, Donald builds residential sculptures. Where others install elevators, Donald installs vertical limousines. Where others use regular materials, Donald uses materials so expensive they require their own insurance policies. This isn't housing, it's architectural theatre. The marketing is even more audacious than the building. Donald doesn't just sell apartments, he sells a lifestyle. The promotional materials read like poetry written by someone who worships money. Trump Tower, where luxury lives. The ultimate expression of success. For those who demand perfection, it's advertising copy that sounds like it was written by someone who's never heard of modesty. The prices are astronomical and deliberately so. Donald understands that for certain buyers, expensive equals desirable. The penthouse cost $10 million in 1983 dollars, which is like paying $30 million today for an apartment that comes with its own zip code. But the waiting list grows longer than a Hollywood red carpet, because some people need to live at the most expensive address in America. The building becomes a symbol of 1980s excess. Wall Street masters of the universe buy apartments here to prove they've made it. European royalty tours the penthouse when they visit New York. Celebrities pose for photos in the lobby, because being seen here is its own form of currency. Trump Tower isn't just Donald's home and office, it's his personal brand made manifest in marble and mirrors. But the real genius is how the building works as a business machine. The ground floor retail space commands some of the highest rents in Manhattan. The office floors house companies that pay premium rates for a prestigious address. The residential units appreciate in value faster than compound interest. Trump Tower doesn't just house the Trump Organization, it funds the Trump Organization's expansion into empire. Living in the penthouse, Donald can see his reflection in the mirrored buildings across 5th Avenue. It's like living inside a kaleidoscope where every view reminds him of his own success. From his windows he can see Central Park to the north, the Empire State Building to the south, and endless opportunities in every direction. The tower establishes Donald as more than just another real estate developer. He's become a brand, a lifestyle, a symbol of American ambition made visible in glass and steel. Tourists ride the escalators just to experience Trump excess. Business magazines feature him on covers. Society photographers follow him to charity galas where he writes checks large enough to fund small countries. But perhaps most importantly, Trump Tower proves that Donald's vision of luxury real estate isn't just viable, it's incredibly profitable. The boy from Queens has built a palace in Manhattan and convinced people to pay him millions for the privilege of living in it. The Trump Organization is no longer just about apartments and hotels. It's about selling dreams to people rich enough to afford them. You're walking through the construction site of Trump Plaza in Atlantic City in 1984, and the smell of salt air mixes with concrete dust and Donald's bottomless ambition. The ocean stretches to the horizon like a blue-green carpet, while behind you rises what will become Donald's first casino. This isn't just another building project. This is Donald Trump's bet that he can master an industry built on other people's bad decisions and worse luck. Atlantic City in the 1980s is like Las Vegas's scrappy younger brother who's trying too hard to impress. The boardwalk still has charm, but it's faded charm, like a movie star who's seen better decades. The casinos are new, but they lack the polished sophistication of Vegas. Donald sees opportunity in that gap. If he can bring Manhattan luxury to Atlantic City gambling, he can own both markets. The casino business is different from real estate development in ways that would scare most rational humans. Real estate generates steady rental income. Casinos depend on people losing money fast enough to cover massive operating expenses. Real estate appreciates over time. Casinos are only as good as last night's betting action. Real estate rewards patience. Casinos reward flashy marketing and the ability to separate tourists from their paychecks. But Donald isn't most rational humans. He sees casinos as real estate that doubles as entertainment, hotels that print money, and restaurants that happen to have slot machines in the lobby. Plus, the cash flow is immediate and enormous. When people lose $100 at blackjack, that money flows directly into Trump's accounts. No waiting for rent checks or dealing with maintenance requests. Trump Plaza opens with the kind of fanfare usually reserved for presidential inaugurations or royal weddings. Frank Sinatra headlines the opening night show because Donald understands that star power translates into gambling dollars. The slot machines are polished to mirror brightness. The poker tables are covered in felt smoother than silk pajamas. The whole place glows like a neon Christmas tree designed by someone who's never heard of understated elegance. The early returns are intoxicating. Gamblers pour through the doors like water through a broken dam. The slot machines ring constantly with the sound of money being lost and occasionally won. The restaurants stay packed with people celebrating wins or drowning losses in expensive alcohol. Donald's investment returns faster than he dared hope. But Donald isn't content with one casino. While Trump Plaza is still finding its rhythm, he's already planning Trump Castle, which will be bigger, shinier, and more profitable than anything Atlantic City has ever seen. The business model is addictive. Build fancy hotels, fill them with games designed to favour the house, and watch tourists voluntarily transfer their vacation budgets into Trump bank accounts. The casino industry teaches Donald lessons that will shape his entire approach to business. Marketing matters more than substance. Perception drives reality. People will pay premium prices for experiences that make them feel special, even if those experiences cost them money they can't afford to lose. The house always wins, but customers keep coming back because they believe they might be the exception. Atlantic City also introduces Donald to a different type of financing. Casino development requires massive upfront investments that traditional banks won't touch. Enter junk bonds, high-yield debt instruments that promise enormous returns to investors willing to accept enormous risks. Donald falls in love with junk bonds the way other people fall in love with sports cars or tropical vacations. By 1985, Donald owns 2 casinos, has plans for a third, and genuinely believes he's found the secret to infinite wealth. The combination of real estate, entertainment, gambling, and borrowed money creates profits that dwarf anything he made in Manhattan. The Trump Organization is evolving from a real estate company into something closer to an entertainment empire. But empires, as Donald will eventually learn, are easier to build than to maintain. The casino business rewards boldness until it punishes recklessness. The same junk bond financing that enables rapid expansion can also enable rapid destruction. For now, though, Donald is riding high on casino profits and the intoxicating belief that he's too smart to fail. The house always wins, and Donald Trump is the house. You're standing in the construction site of the Trump Taj Mahal in 1989, and it's like watching someone try to build the pyramids with credit cards. The casino's going to be massive. 120,000 square feet of gaming space, 1,250 hotel rooms, and enough marble to pave a small city. Donald calls it the 8th wonder of the world, which would be funnier if he weren't completely serious. This isn't just a casino, it's Donald's attempt to build a monument to his own ambition. The Taj Mahal costs nearly $1 billion to complete, which in 1989 money is like spending enough to buy several small countries. Donald finances the project with junk bonds that carry interest rates high enough to make loan sharks blush. 14% annual interest on $675 million in bonds. That means Donald has to pay almost $100 million every year just in interest. before any other expenses, it's like buying a house with a mortgage that costs more than most people's entire life savings. But Donald isn't worried about the math. He's convinced that the Taj Mahal will be so spectacular, so irresistible to gamblers, that money will flow through its doors like water through Niagara Falls. The casino will feature everything from high-limit poker rooms to penny slot machines, from gourmet restaurants to all-you-can-eat buffets. Something for every gambler, from billionaires to people betting their grocery money. The construction is chaos wrapped in luxury and tied together with hope. Thousands of workers swarm the site like ants building a crystal palace. Marble arrives from quarries around the world. Crystal chandeliers cost more than most people's houses. The carpet alone requires its own cargo ship. Donald visits the site daily, micromanaging details that would make obsessive-compulsive disorder look casual. The Taj Mahal opens in April 1990 with a party that makes royal weddings look like backyard barbecues. Michael Jackson performs for celebrities, politicians and high rollers who arrive in limousines longer than city buses. The media coverage makes it seem like Donald has invented a new form of entertainment that combines gambling, luxury and pure spectacle. For exactly one day, the Taj Mahal looks like genius. The opening day revenue breaks records. Gamblers pack every table and slot machine. The restaurants can't serve food fast enough. The hotel books solid for months in advance. Donald stands in his new palace, surrounded by ringing slot machines and the sound of money being lost and won, and feels like the king of a very profitable universe. But the math that Donald ignored during construction becomes impossible to ignore during operations. The Taj Mahal needs to generate roughly $300 million annually just to cover its debt service and operating expenses. That means every single day, the casino needs to separate roughly $1 million from gamblers' pockets. Not revenue, profit. Pure money lost by people betting against odds designed to favour the house. The problem is that Atlantic City only has so many gamblers, and Donald now owns 3 casinos competing for the same customers. Trump Plaza, Trump Castle, and the Taj Mahal are essentially cannibalising each other's business. Instead of tripling his casino revenue, Donald has created an expensive war between his own properties. The broader Atlantic City market is also struggling. Las Vegas has newer, fancier casinos. Native American gaming is expanding across the country, giving gamblers options closer to home. The recession of 1990 to 1991 hits the casino industry particularly hard because gambling is often the first luxury people cut when money gets tight. Within months of opening, the Taj Mahal is hemorrhaging money faster than a slot machine paying out jackpots. The magnificent casino that was supposed to generate infinite wealth is instead generating infinite problems. Donald's other businesses start suffering because so much capital is tied up in his casino empire. The real estate projects that made him famous are starved for funding. By late 1990, Donald faces a crisis that threatens to destroy everything he's built. The junk bonds are coming due, the banks are nervous, and the casino revenues aren't covering the debt payments. The 8th wonder of the world has become the first wonder of how quickly enormous fortunes can evaporate. Donald Trump, master of the deal, is about to learn that some deals are too big even for masters. You're sitting in a bankruptcy lawyer's office in 1991, watching Donald Trump sign papers that essentially admit his empire was built on quicksand and wishful thinking. The man who once claimed he could never fail is filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy for the Taj Mahal, just 13 months after it opened with champagne and celebrity fanfare. The 8th wonder of the world has become the 8th blunder of the financial world. The numbers are staggering in there. Brutality. The Taj Mahal owes $675 million to bondholders, plus millions more to contractors, suppliers, and employees. Daily interest payments alone cost more than most successful businesses earn in profit. The casino that was supposed to print money has instead become a money-shredding machine that operates at a loss even when packed with gamblers. But here's where Donald shows the genius that will define his career. He treats bankruptcy not as failure, but as a negotiating tool. While other businessmen would slink away in shame, Donald holds press conferences explaining how bankruptcy will make the Taj Mahal stronger. He's not failing, he's strategically restructuring. He's not broke, he's reorganizing for future success. The bankruptcy process is like watching a master magician make problems disappear through legal sleight of hand. Donald negotiates to give bondholders 50% ownership of the casino in exchange for reducing the debt burden and lowering interest rates. The people who lent him money to build the Taj Mahal become his unwilling business partners. It's like convincing the bank that gave you a mortgage to help pay your utilities. But the Taj Mahal is just the beginning. By 1992, Donald's other Atlantic City properties, Trump Castle and Trump Plaza, are also filing for bankruptcy protection. The entire casino empire that was supposed to make him one of America's richest men has instead made him one of America's most spectacularly leveraged men. The personal toll is enormous. Donald's marriage to Ivana disintegrates under the financial pressure and media scrutiny. His social life becomes a tabloid soap opera. His business reputation takes hits that would destroy most entrepreneurs. But Donald possesses something that can't be taught in business school: the ability to treat catastrophic failure as a temporary inconvenience. The banks face a fascinating dilemma. Donald owes them so much money that letting him fail completely would cause massive losses to the financial institutions themselves. It's the ultimate example of too big to fail on a personal level. The banks literally can't afford to let Donald Trump go bankrupt because they've lent him so much money that his failure would be their failure too. So the banks do something that seems insane. They give Donald an allowance, a monthly stipend of $450,000 to cover his personal expenses while he restructures his businesses. It's like being grounded by your parents, except your parents have to pay you to stay in your room because they can't afford to kick you out of the house. Donald uses this breathing room brilliantly. Instead of cutting back on his lifestyle or hiding from the media, he doubles down on self-promotion. He writes a book called The Art of the Comeback that frames his bankruptcy as a strategic business decision rather than a desperate last resort. He appears on talk shows explaining how failure taught him valuable lessons about success. The strategy works, because Donald understands something fundamental about American culture. People love comeback stories more than they love success stories. The businessman who never fails is impressive. The businessman who fails spectacularly and then recovers is inspirational. Donald transforms his bankruptcies from embarrassing financial disasters into compelling narrative arc. By 1995, Donald has successfully restructured his casino debts, maintained control of his properties, and begun the process of rebuilding his fortune. The casinos are profitable again, not because they're generating more revenue, but because the debt burden has been reduced to manageable levels. Donald has essentially used bankruptcy law to force his creditors to accept partial payment while he keeps the assets. The lesson Donald learns from his first bankruptcy isn't humility. It's that debt can be a weapon as powerful as it is dangerous. Borrow enough money, and you become your lender's problem as much as they become yours. Build something big enough, and failure becomes so expensive that success becomes the only option banks will finance. You're watching Donald Trump on Late Night with David Letterman in 1994, and he's talking about his bankruptcies like they were strategic victories rather than financial disasters. The audience laughs when he jokes about owing more money than some country's gross domestic product. David Letterman grins and asks if Donald is worried about money, and Donald responds with perfect timing, "I'm worth more broke than most people are worth rich." The audience erupts, and Donald has just demonstrated the alchemy that will define his career, turning embarrassment into entertainment. The bankruptcy years teach Donald something more valuable than money: the power of narrative control. While his casinos struggle with debt and his real estate projects stall for lack of financing, Donald masters the art of staying famous for being famous. He appears on every talk show, gives interviews to every magazine, and somehow convinces the media that his financial problems are actually proof of his business genius. The strategy is counterintuitive and brilliant. Most people facing financial ruin would hide from publicity and hope their problems blow over quietly. Donald does the opposite. He seeks out cameras like a moth drawn to Klieg lights. Every interview is an opportunity to reframe his story, every appearance a chance to remind people that Donald Trump is still a name worth knowing. The media loves him because he's reliable entertainment. Other businessmen give boring interviews about market conditions and profit margins. Donald gives sound bites that could come from action movie scripts. "I love being under pressure," he tells reporters. "It brings out the best in me." When asked about his debt, he responds, "I borrowed from banks because I could." It's called leverage. Donald's media strategy extends beyond talk shows and magazine profiles. He starts writing books not about business theory or management philosophy, but about himself. Trump, The Art of the Deal becomes a bestseller by promising to reveal the secrets of Donald's success. The fact that he's currently restructuring billions in debt through bankruptcy proceedings doesn't seem to hurt sales. The books serve multiple purposes. They generate revenue when other income sources are limited. They keep Donald's name in bookstores and bestseller lists. Most importantly, they allow Donald to tell his own story in his own words, creating a mythologized version of his business career that emphasizes victories while glossing over failures. Television becomes Donald's natural habitat. He appears on everything from morning news shows to primetime specials. The medium loves him because he's photogenic, quotable, and completely comfortable in front of cameras. Donald understands that television isn't about truth. It's about entertainment value. He gives producers exactly what they want: confident, controversial, and compelling content. The transformation is remarkable. Before the bankruptcies, Donald was known primarily to real estate professionals and New York society pages. After the bankruptcies, he becomes a national celebrity whose name recognition rivals movie stars and politicians. Financial failure, rather than destroying his reputation, has somehow enhanced it. Donald also begins licensing his name to products that have nothing to do with real estate. Trump Vodka, Trump Steaks, Trump University. The brand expands beyond buildings into lifestyle products. The logic is simple. If people recognize the Trump name from television and books, they might pay premium prices for products bearing that name. The licensing deals are pure profit with minimal risk. Donald doesn't manufacture vodka or beef. He simply allows other companies to use his name in exchange for royalty payments. If the products succeed, Donald makes money. If they fail, his only loss is some reputation damage, which he's proven he can survive. By 1995, Donald has successfully transformed from a struggling real estate developer into a multimedia entertainment brand. His casinos may have filed for bankruptcy, but his celebrity stock has never been higher. He's discovered something that will drive the next phase of his career. In America, being famous is a business model all by itself. The media empire Donald builds during his financial crisis becomes the foundation for his eventual comeback. When banks are reluctant to lend to him for real estate projects, his celebrity status opens doors to television deals, licensing agreements, and branding opportunities. The man who almost lost everything by borrowing too much money has learned to make money by selling himself. You're walking through a convenience store in 2005, and there's Trump water next to the Coca-Cola, Trump steaks in the freezer section, and a Trump magazine by the checkout counter. This isn't a fever. Dream caused by too much caffeine. This is Donald Trump's brilliant realization that his name has become more valuable than his buildings, and he's going to milk that realization like it's the last cow in America. The genius of licensing is that Donald doesn't have to risk his own money or manage actual businesses. He simply rents his name to companies that want to associate their products with luxury, success, and the kind of confidence that builds casinos in bankruptcy court. It's like being paid to let someone else use your reputation while you sit back and collect checks. Trump Vodka launches with the slogan "Success Distilled," which is either brilliant marketing or the most honest advertising ever created, depending on how you define success. The vodka itself is produced by someone else, in someone else's factory, with someone else's money. Donald's contribution is allowing his name to appear on the bottle and showing up for photo opportunities where he pretends to drink luxury alcohol. The vodka fails spectacularly because, as it turns out, most people who buy luxury vodka don't associate the Trump brand with sophisticated taste. But Donald doesn't lose money on the failure because he never invested money in the business. He simply stops collecting licensing fees when the product disappears from shelves. It's risk-free capitalism. Trump Steaks follows the same model. Premium beef sold through mail-order catalogs and high-end stores, marketed as the kind of meat successful people serve at dinner parties. The marketing materials feature photos of Donald looking distinguished while holding raw beef, which should probably be someone's LinkedIn profile picture. The steaks also fail, but again, Donald's only loss is the opportunity cost of licensing his name to a different meat company. The actual investors, distributors, and retailers absorb all the financial damage while Donald moves on to the next licensing opportunity. It's like being a movie star who gets paid up front regardless of whether the film succeeds. Trump University represents the pinnacle of licensing excess. Donald lends his name to a real estate education company that promises to teach students the secrets of his success. courses cost thousands of dollars and feature instructors who learned about real estate development by reading Donald's books rather than actually developing real estate. The university is eventually shut down amid lawsuits claiming fraud, but not before generating millions in revenue that Donald splits with the actual operators. Students who paid for Trump's wisdom end up with overpriced certificates, and the hard lesson that successful branding doesn't guarantee valuable education. But for every failure, there are successes that prove the power of the Trump brand. Trump-branded buildings in foreign countries generate steady licensing fees without requiring Donald to invest capital or manage construction. Developers in Panama, Turkey, and the Philippines pay millions just to put Trump on their buildings because the name suggests luxury and international sophistication. The international licensing deals are particularly brilliant because they tap into global perceptions of American success. Foreign real estate developers believe that American customers will pay premium prices for apartments in buildings associated with famous American businessmen. They're usually right. Donald discovers that his name is most valuable in countries where American business culture is admired but not fully understood. The Trump brand sells better in Mumbai than Milwaukee because distant customers are more impressed by the mythology than bothered by the reality. By 2010, licensing deals generate more revenue for Donald than his actual real estate holdings. The man who built his reputation on constructing buildings has learned to make more money by not constructing anything. His most profitable business model involves sitting in Trump Tower and signing contracts that allow other people to use his name. The strategy transforms the Trump organization from a real estate company into something closer to a celebrity management firm. Donald's primary asset isn't property, it's brand recognition. His most valuable skill isn't developing buildings, it's developing and maintaining his public image. The businessman has become a performer who stages the entire global economy. You're sitting in a television studio in 2003, watching Donald Trump point his finger at a nervous contestant and deliver 2 words that will make him more famous than any building he's ever constructed. You're fired! The audience in the studio gasps, the cameras zoom in for dramatic effect, and somewhere in middle America, families gather around their televisions to watch a billionaire businessman turn job interviews into blood sport. The Apprentice is reality television genius wrapped in business education and tied together with Donald's natural ability to turn every situation into theatre. The premise is simple. Ambitious young professionals compete for the chance to work for the Trump organization by completing business challenges that test everything, from sales skills to creativity to the ability to function without sleep. But the real star isn't the contestants or the challenges, it's Donald himself, playing a character that's part CEO, part game show host, and part judge delivering verdicts from a golden throne. He sits at the head of a boardroom table that looks more expensive than most people's homes, flanked by advisors who hang on his every word like disciples waiting for wisdom. The show makes Donald look like the ultimate businessman. Every episode reinforces the image of Trump as a decisive leader who can evaluate talent, solve problems, and run meetings that produce results. The contestants treat him with the kind of reverence usually reserved for religious figures or mafia bosses. America watches and thinks, this is what business success looks like. The boardroom scenes are pure television magic. Donald sits in judgment while contestants explain why they deserve to stay and their teammates deserve to be eliminated. It's like Survivor for people who wear suits instead of swimsuits, and the tribal council happens in Trump Tower instead of on a beach. "You're fired" becomes Donald's signature phrase, delivered with the timing of a professional comedian and the authority of someone who's actually fired thousands of people. The 2 words capture the fantasy that millions of Americans have about being powerful enough to end someone's career with a simple declaration. The show's success is immediate and massive. Sunday night television ratings that crush most movies and sporting events. Merchandise sales that turn "you're fired" into a national catchphrase. Media coverage that treats each episode like a cultural event worthy of analysis and discussion. But The Apprentice does something more valuable for Donald than generate television revenue. It rehabilitates his public image from businessman who filed for bankruptcy to business genius who makes tough decisions. Viewers who remember his casino failures from the 1990s now see him as an executive who runs successful companies and makes smart hiring decisions. The show also allows Donald to control his narrative completely. Every episode presents the Trump organization as a smoothly functioning business empire, where important decisions get made quickly and correctly. The real-world complexities of real estate development, permits, financing, construction delays, market fluctuations, disappear in favour of streamlined business challenges with clear winners and losers. Donald becomes the central character in America's fantasy about business success. He's tough but fair, demanding but generous, smart enough to spot talent and decisive enough to eliminate weakness. The image is carefully crafted but incredibly effective. Millions of Americans who have never met Donald Trump feel like they know him personally. The celebrity status that The Apprentice creates opens doors that had been closed during his financial troubles. Banks that were hesitant to lend to a developer with a bankruptcy history are eager to finance projects for a television star with national name recognition. Business partners who avoided him during his casino crisis now seek him out for licensing deals and joint ventures. The show runs for 14 seasons and makes Donald one of the most recognizable faces in America. More importantly, it transforms his brand from real estate developer to business expert, from casino owner to job creator, from bankruptcy survivor to corporate leader. The man who almost lost everything has used television to become more famous than ever. The Apprentice proves that in modern America, perception often matters more than reality. Donald's business empire may be smaller than it was during his casino heyday, but his cultural influence is enormous. The television audience that watches him fire people on Sunday nights becomes a customer base for everything from licensing deals to political campaigns. You're standing in the lobby of Trump International Hotel and Tower in Toronto in 2012, and it's like being inside a snow globe designed by someone who thinks more is always better. The marble floors gleam like mirrors, the crystal chandeliers cast rainbows on the walls, and the Trump name is etched in gold letters large enough to be visible from space. This building represents Donald's latest evolution. Global brand expansion funded by other people's money. The Toronto project is pure licensing genius. Donald doesn't own the building, didn't finance its construction, and won't be responsible if it fails. He simply sold his name and brand to Canadian developers who believe that Trump suggests luxury to international buyers. In exchange, Donald collects millions in licensing fees and a percentage of sales revenue without risking a single dollar of his own money. The business model is elegant in its simplicity. Foreign developers pay Donald upfront licensing fees plus ongoing royalties for the right to use the Trump name on their buildings. Donald provides marketing support, design consultation, and his personal appearance at sales events. If the project succeeds, everyone makes money. If it fails, Donald keeps the licensing fees while the developers absorb all the losses. Trump-branded projects sprout across the globe like expensive mushrooms. Panama City, Istanbul, Mumbai, Baku. Cities where American business success is admired, and the Trump brand suggests both luxury and international sophistication. Each project generates revenue for Donald without requiring capital investment or hands-on management. The international licensing deals tap into a fascinating psychological phenomenon. Wealthy buyers in emerging markets often prefer American-branded luxury goods because they associate American brands with quality, prestige, and global sophistication. A Trump-branded apartment in Mumbai sells for more than comparable apartments because buyers believe they're purchasing a piece of American success. But the global expansion also exposes Donald to complex international business relationships that would make foreign policy experts nervous. The Trump Organization partners with developers in countries where business success often depends on political connections, regulatory flexibility, and relationships that blur the lines between commerce and government. The Azerbaijan project involves developers with ties to Iranian government officials, which creates potential conflicts with US sanctions. The Turkey project depends on maintaining good relationships with the Erdogan government during a period of increasing authoritarianism. The Russia projects require navigating oligarchs, sanctions, and the kind of political complexity that would challenge experienced diplomats. Donald's financial engineering becomes increasingly sophisticated as his global empire expands. Instead of borrowing money to fund projects, he uses licensing deals to generate cash that funds other licensing deals. Instead of owning assets that require maintenance and management, he owns brand value that appreciates without operational overhead. The strategy allows Donald to claim enormous net worth without actually controlling enormous assets. When Forbes calculates his wealth, they include the estimated value of the Trump brand licensing agreements, and ongoing revenue streams from projects he doesn't own. It's wealth that exists on paper but doesn't require storage in bank vaults. By 2015, the Trump Organization is less a real estate company than a global brand management operation. Donald's primary business is selling the Trump name to developers who want to associate their projects with American luxury. His secondary business is maintaining the celebrity status that makes the Trump name valuable to those developers. The transformation is complete. Donald has evolved from someone who builds things to someone who brands things. The man who started by constructing apartments in Queens now makes money by allowing other people to put his name on their apartments in cities he's never visited. The global expansion requires almost no capital but generates enormous cash flow. The business model also creates a fascinating circular relationship between celebrity and wealth. Donald's television fame makes the Trump brand valuable to international developers. The licensing fees from international developers fund the lifestyle that maintains his celebrity status. The celebrity status attracts more television opportunities, which enhance the brand value, which attracts more licensing deals. By the time Donald announces his presidential campaign in 2015, the Trump Organization has evolved into something unprecedented. A global branding empire built on debt-free expansion, risk-free partnerships, and the monetization of a single man's carefully cultivated image. The boy from Queens has learned to sell his name to the world. You're watching Donald Trump descend the golden escalator in Trump Tower on June 16, 2015, and something extraordinary is happening. The man who's spent decades selling his name to hotels and steaks is about to discover that running for president is the ultimate licensing deal. The campaign that starts as political theatre will become the most profitable marketing campaign in business history. The announcement speech is pure Trump brand management disguised as political rallying cry. The golden backdrop, the family members arranged like props, the media assembled like customers at a luxury car unveiling. Everything is designed to reinforce the image of Trump as successful, powerful, and worthy of attention. The political content is almost secondary to the brand presentation, but here's what most people miss. The presidential campaign immediately transforms Donald's business model. Hotels that struggled to fill rooms suddenly book solid with political supporters, foreign dignitaries, and journalists covering the campaign. The Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. becomes the unofficial headquarters for Republican politics, generating millions in revenue from government officials and lobbyists who want access to the potential future president. The campaign itself operates like a marketing department for the Trump Organization. Every rally is essentially a branding event where thousands of people cheer for the Trump name while wearing Trump merchandise and sharing Trump content on social media. It's like having a traveling trade show that generates free advertising worth millions of dollars. Secret Service protection turns out to be the world's most expensive endorsement. When government agents stay at Trump properties to protect the candidate, taxpayers fund millions in revenue to Trump businesses. The man running for president is literally getting paid by the government to run for president. It's like being sponsored by the competition. Foreign governments trying to curry favour with a potential president start booking rooms at Trump hotels, hosting events at Trump properties, and generally directing money toward Trump businesses. The Emoluments Clause of the Constitution prohibits presidents from receiving gifts from foreign governments, but it says nothing about presidential candidates receiving hotel revenue from foreign diplomats. The campaign also serves as an extended job interview for the Trump brand. Every television appearance, every debate performance, every news cycle dominated by Trump content increases global awareness of the Trump name. Win or lose, the campaign will generate brand recognition worth hundreds of millions in advertising value. But the most brilliant aspect of the campaign business model is how it turns political opposition into marketing gold. Every attack from competitors, every negative news story, every controversy generates more media coverage and keeps the Trump name in headlines. Bad publicity is still publicity, and publicity translates into brand value. The rallies become particularly valuable because they're essentially free focus groups. Donald can test messages, observe crowd reactions, and refine his brand positioning based on real-time feedback from thousands of supporters. It's market research that would cost millions if conducted by professional consulting firms. Social media amplifies everything exponentially. Every tweet generates thousands of responses, shares, and reactions that keep the Trump brand trending continuously. The controversy that would destroy traditional politicians only increases Trump's celebrity status and brand recognition. He's discovered that in the attention economy, infamy is just as valuable as fame. By Election Day 2016, the presidential campaign has generated more brand value for the Trump organization than decades of traditional marketing could have produced. Win or lose, Donald has already achieved the ultimate business victory, transforming political ambition into corporate profit while convincing millions of Americans to voluntarily promote his brand. The campaign proves that for Donald, politics isn't separate from business. It's the ultimate business. The presidency isn't just the most powerful office in America, it's potentially the most profitable marketing platform in the world. The man who made millions licensing his name to vodka and steaks is about to discover what happens when you license your name to democracy itself. You're watching Donald Trump take the oath of office on January 20th, 2017, and what you're really witnessing is the ultimate corporate acquisition. The man who built his fortune by putting his name on buildings has just put his name on the most powerful institution in the world. The presidency isn't just about governing America, it's about expanding the Trump brand into markets that were previously inaccessible. From day one, the Trump presidency operates like a subsidiary of the Trump organization. Government officials, foreign leaders, and lobbyists seeking access to the president frequently book rooms at Trump properties. The Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. becomes the unofficial embassy for anyone wanting to send a message to the White House through their choice of accommodations. The constitutional prohibition against presidents profiting from their office becomes a daily business challenge rather than a legal constraint. Every time Vice President Pence stays at a Trump property in Ireland, every time foreign officials choose Trump hotels for their Washington visits, every time government employees hold meetings at Trump resorts, the presidency generates revenue for the Trump organization. Air Force One becomes the ultimate endorsement vehicle. When the president travels on the government's plane to his own properties, taxpayers fund both the trip and the destination revenue. It's like having the world's most expensive taxi deliver customers directly to your hotels, while the government pays for both the ride and the marketing. Foreign governments quickly learn that the way to curry favor with President Trump is through the Trump Organization. Malaysian officials under investigation for corruption host events at Trump International Hotel. The Saudi government books an entire floor of rooms at Trump's DC hotel. Turkish officials hold conferences at Trump properties while seeking favorable treatment for President Erdogan. Diplomacy becomes indistinguishable from customer service. The presidency also provides unprecedented platform for brand enhancement. Every presidential statement, every policy announcement, every international agreement generates global media coverage that mentions the Trump name. It's advertising that money can't buy because most of the coverage is mandatory rather than optional. Social media reaches new levels of marketing effectiveness. Presidential tweets immediately become global news, ensuring that the Trump brand receives daily worldwide attention. Every controversial statement generates millions of responses, shares, and reactions that keep the Trump name trending continuously across all platforms. The family business aspect becomes particularly valuable. When Ivanka Trump accompanies her father on international trips, she simultaneously conducts business for her fashion brand. When Donald Trump Jr. travels to promote Trump Organization projects, he receives Secret Service protection that taxpayers fund. The presidential family becomes a traveling trade mission for Trump enterprises. Government regulatory decisions start affecting Trump business interests in ways that would make ethics professors dizzy. Environmental regulations impact Trump golf courses. Immigration policies affect Trump properties that employ foreign workers. Foreign policy decisions influence Trump licensing deals in countries around the world. The presidency becomes a tool for managing business interests on a global scale. But perhaps most importantly, the presidency validates the Trump brand in ways that decades of traditional business success never could. Foreign buyers who might have been skeptical about Trump-branded properties before 2017 suddenly view them as investments connected to the most powerful office in the world. The presidential seal becomes an unofficial endorsement for Trump commercial enterprises. The business benefits extend beyond direct revenue. Presidential meetings with foreign leaders often coincide with favorable developments for Trump Organization projects in those leaders' countries. Regulatory approvals that have been stalled for years suddenly move forward. business partnerships that seemed unlikely become diplomatic necessities. By 2020, the presidency has transformed the Trump Organization from a family business into a global enterprise with unprecedented access to power, influence, and revenue streams. The office that was designed to serve American interests has become a platform for advancing Trump interests, with the two often overlapping in ways that previous presidents carefully avoided. The ultimate irony is that the presidency, which traditionally cost politicians their business interests through required divestitures and ethical constraints, has instead enhanced Trump's business interests in ways that would have been impossible without access to presidential power. The man who promised to drain the swamp has instead learned to monetize it. You're sitting in a courtroom in New York in 2023 watching Donald Trump face charges that would destroy most business empires. But somehow his financial empire grows stronger with each indictment. The man who's mastered the art of turning controversy into cash flow is discovering that legal problems can be surprisingly profitable when you know how to work the system. The various investigations, criminal charges in New York, federal cases about classified documents and election interference, civil fraud trials would normally devastate any business organization. But the Trump Organization has evolved into something unprecedented. A company that generates revenue from its leaders' legal troubles rather than despite them. Every indictment becomes a fundraising opportunity. Within hours of each criminal charge being announced, millions of dollars flow into Trump's political action committees from supporters who believe he's being persecuted by the justice system. The legal defense fund becomes a business model that generates more money than many Fortune 500 companies' quarterly profits. The merchandise sales are particularly brilliant. Arrest me if you can. T-shirts, witch hunt, hats, coffee mugs featuring Trump's mugshot. Every legal development spawns new products that supporters buy enthusiastically. The man who once sold steaks and vodka is now selling martyrdom, and the market demand is enormous. The courtroom appearances themselves become marketing events. Every perp walk, every arraignment, every hearing generates global media coverage that keeps the Trump brand in headlines continuously. It's advertising that competitors can't buy because they don't have access to federal indictments as promotional tools. But the financial engineering behind Trump's legal resilience is even more sophisticated. The political action committees that collect donations for legal defense can also pay for travel, security, and lifestyle expenses. Supporters who think they're funding legal battles are actually subsidizing the entire Trump family's continued luxury lifestyle. The business model has evolved to thrive on controversy rather than merely survive it. Where traditional companies would suffer reputation damage from criminal charges, the Trump Organization benefits from them. Each new legal problem validates supporters' belief that Trump is fighting corrupt institutions, which increases their willingness to financially support that fight. Foreign governments and international businesses that want to curry favor with a potential future president continue directing money toward Trump properties despite, or perhaps because of, the legal troubles. The man who might return to the presidency is more valuable as a business partner than the private citizen who left office. The legal cases also provide perfect cover for questionable financial arrangements. When millions of dollars flow through various Trump organizations for legal defense, the actual destination and use of those funds becomes harder to track. Campaign finance laws and attorney-client privilege create legal barriers that protect financial details from public scrutiny. Real estate values for Trump properties actually increase during the legal battles because the properties become historically significant as the homes and businesses of a president under indictment. Trump Tower and Mar-a-Lago aren't just luxury properties. They're monuments to one of the most controversial periods in American political history. The brand licensing deals continue generating revenue because international developers still want to associate their projects with the Trump name. If anything, the legal controversies make the brand more famous globally, which increases its value to foreign partners who believe American legal troubles enhance rather than diminish Trump's celebrity status. By 2024, the Trump Organization has successfully transformed every legal challenge into a business opportunity. Criminal indictments become fundraising campaigns. Civil fraud trials become media events. Investigations become proof of persecution that justifies continued financial support from millions of Americans. The ultimate achievement is that Trump has created a business model that doesn't just survive legal and financial pressure, it feeds on it. Every attack makes him stronger. Every investigation generates more revenue. Every court appearance enhances his brand value. The man who once filed for bankruptcy has built an empire that grows more profitable as the legal pressure increases. The transformation is complete. Donald Trump has evolved from a businessman who occasionally faced legal problems into a legal defendant whose problems generate enormous business success. The boy from Queens, who started with an $800 loan, has learned to monetize the American justice system itself. You're watching Donald Trump leave the White House on January 20th, 2021, and while most former presidents fade into comfortable retirement, Trump is about to discover that being an ex-president might be even more profitable than being the actual president. The man who turned controversy into cash flow during his presidency is about to learn that martyrdom sells better than victory ever did. Within months of leaving office, the Trump Organization has transformed into something unprecedented, a post-presidential business empire that generates revenue from grievance, nostalgia, and the promise of political resurrection. Every perceived injustice becomes a business opportunity, every legal challenge becomes a fundraising campaign, and every media appearance becomes a product launch. Truth Social, Trump's answer to Twitter's ban, attracts millions of users and billions in theoretical valuation, despite having fewer daily active users than most successful mobile games. The platform isn't just about social media. It's about creating a proprietary customer base for Trump products, services, and messaging. It's like owning your own country with its own currency, except the currency is attention, and the citizens are voluntary subscribers. The Mar-a-Lago resort transforms from a private club into a pilgrimage destination for Republican politicians, conservative activists, and wealthy supporters who pay premium prices for the chance to vacation where the former president lives. Membership fees skyrocket, event bookings multiply, and every dinner becomes a potential fundraising opportunity. It's like turning your house into a theme park dedicated to yourself. But the real genius is how Trump monetizes his continued political relevance. The Trump store sells merchandise ranging from golf balls to greeting cards, all featuring his image, quotes, or political slogans. Supporters who can't afford to join Mar-a-Lago can still buy coffee mugs that make them feel connected to the Trump brand. It's micro-targeted luxury marketing for people who shop at Walmart. The speaking fees reach levels that would make motivational speakers weep with envy. Corporate events, political rallies, private gatherings, Trump commands six-figure payments for appearances that often last less than an hour. The man who once hosted The Apprentice has become his own travelling show, performing for audiences who pay premium prices to hear him speak in person. Book deals, documentary rights, and media partnerships generate millions in advance payments for content that hasn't been created yet. Publishers and producers who want access to Trump's story are willing to pay enormous sums for the exclusive rights to monetize his post-presidential narrative. It's like selling the movie rights to your life while you're still living it. The licensing deals continue expanding into international markets where Trump's brand has been enhanced rather than damaged by his presidency. Developers in India, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe compete to attach the Trump name to their projects because association with a former American president suggests both luxury and political connections. The legal fundraising becomes its own revenue stream. Every indictment, every court appearance, every legal filing generates millions in donations from supporters who believe Trump is being persecuted by corrupt institutions. The criminal justice system becomes an inadvertent marketing partner that provides unlimited content for fundraising campaigns. But perhaps most brilliantly, Trump discovers that being a former president provides perfect cover for questionable business arrangements. Foreign governments and international businesses that want to maintain relationships with a potential future president can direct money toward Trump properties without the ethical scrutiny that presidential businesses would normally receive. The NFT collection launch represents peak Trump business evolution. Digital trading cards featuring Trump as a superhero, astronaut, and cowboy sell for hundreds of dollars each to supporters who want to own unique digital assets connected to their political hero. It's modern art meets political memorabilia meets cryptocurrency speculation, all wrapped in Trump branding. By 2023, the post-presidency Trump Organization generates more diverse revenue streams than it ever managed during Trump's time in office. Real estate, media, merchandising, speaking fees, licensing deals, legal fundraising, membership fees, and digital assets create a business empire that feeds on political controversy rather than traditional market success. The transformation is remarkable. Trump has evolved from a businessman who became president into an ex-president whose business model depends on remaining politically relevant forever. The presidency wasn't the culmination of his business career. It was just another licensing deal that enhanced his brand value for all future enterprises. You're looking at Forbes magazine's estimate of Donald Trump's net worth in 2024, and the numbers are both impressive and impossible to verify with any precision. $4 billion, they claim, built on a combination of real estate holdings, brand value, licensing deals, and business interests that span the globe like a very expensive spiderweb. But here's the fascinating part. Most of that wealth exists not in things you can touch, but in the value of a name that's become synonymous with controversy, luxury, and the kind of success that survives multiple bankruptcies. The real estate portfolio remains the foundation, but it's a much smaller foundation than most people realize. Trump Tower, 40 Wall Street, various golf courses, and Mar-a-Lago represent tangible assets worth hundreds of millions. But the majority of Trump's wealth exists in less concrete forms: brand licensing agreements, intellectual property rights, and the estimated value of the Trump name itself. Brand valuation is part art, part science, and part wishful thinking. How much is the Trump name worth to a hotel developer in Mumbai? What's the annual revenue potential of licensing the Trump brand to golf courses in Scotland? How much would someone pay for exclusive rights to the Trump name in the luxury real estate market? These questions have answers, but the answers change based on Trump's political status, legal situation, and cultural relevance. The international licensing deals generate steady cash flow that doesn't require Trump to manage day-to-day operations or maintain physical assets. Trump-branded properties in Panama, Turkey, the Philippines, and other countries continue generating royalty payments regardless of what's happening in American politics. It's passive income from a global brand that transcends national boundaries. Truth Social represents the most speculative component of Trump's wealth. The platform's valuation fluctuates wildly based on user engagement, advertising revenue, and investor speculation about its long-term viability. When the company goes public through a SPAC merger, Trump's stake theoretically makes him billions richer, though actually accessing that wealth would require selling shares in a volatile market. The golf courses deserve special attention because they represent both assets and liabilities simultaneously. Properties like Trump National Doral and Trump Turnberry are valuable real estate holdings that generate revenue from golf memberships, tournaments, and hospitality services. But they also require enormous maintenance costs, capital improvements, and operational expenses that can exceed their income. The merchandising empire has evolved into something unprecedented for a former president. Trump-branded products range from clothing and accessories to home goods and digital collectibles. The profit margins on merchandise are enormous because supporters will pay premium prices for products that connect them to the Trump brand, regardless of the actual manufacturing costs. But the most intriguing aspect of Trump's wealth is how much of it depends on his continued political relevance. The Trump brand is valuable because Trump remains famous, controversial, and politically significant. If he were to disappear from public life, many of his business ventures would lose their primary selling point: association with Donald Trump himself. The debt situation adds complexity to any wealth calculation. While Trump has successfully restructured much of his casino-era debt, he still owes hundreds of millions to various lenders. The timing of these debts, the terms of repayment, and the assets pledged as collateral all affect his actual net worth versus his theoretical wealth. Forbes' methodology includes estimates for brand value, but brand value is notoriously difficult to calculate precisely. How much is the Trump name worth if he wins the 2024 election versus if he loses? How much does each legal indictment affect the brand's commercial value? How much would the brand be worth if sold to another company? These variables make exact valuation impossible. The international business relationships add another layer of complexity. Trump Organization deals in countries with different legal systems. Currency fluctuations and political risks can significantly impact overall wealth calculations. A property development in Turkey might be worth millions in stable conditions, but much less if US-Turkey relations deteriorate. By 2024, Trump's wealth represents a unique hybrid of traditional real estate values, modern brand economics, political celebrity, and financial engineering. The boy from Queens, who started with an $800 loan, has created a business empire that's worth billions on paper, generates hundreds of millions in annual revenue, and depends as much on media attention as it does on market fundamentals. You're standing in Trump Tower in 2024, looking out at a New York skyline that still glitters with Trump-branded properties, and it's clear that the empire Fred Trump started with garage construction in 1923 has evolved into something that defies traditional business categories. This isn't just a real estate company, a media enterprise, or a political organization. It's become a self-sustaining ecosystem that feeds on American culture's fascination with wealth, celebrity, and controversy. The Trump Organization of 2024 bears little resemblance to the company that Elizabeth Trump and her teenage son founded a century ago. What started as a local construction business has metastasized into a global brand that generates revenue from sources that didn't exist when Fred Trump was building houses in Queens. Real estate remains important, but it's now just one division of an empire that includes media, merchandising, hospitality, entertainment, technology, and political fundraising. The genius of the modern Trump empire is its circular nature. Political relevance generates media attention, which enhances brand value, which increases licensing revenue, which funds continued political activity, which generates more media attention. It's a perpetual motion machine powered by controversy and fueled by the American public's inability to look away from spectacle. Consider the revenue streams that flow into Trump coffers on any given day. Golf course memberships, hotel bookings, licensing fees from international properties, merchandise sales, speaking fees, media deals, digital asset sales, and political donations all generate income simultaneously. It's diversification taken to an almost artistic level, where failure in one area barely affects the overall enterprise. The international reach would astonish Fred Trump, who never built outside the New York metropolitan area. Trump-branded properties exist on every continent except Antarctica, generating revenue in dozens of currencies and operating under hundreds of different legal systems. The name that started in Queens now appears on buildings from Panama to the Philippines. But the most remarkable aspect of the Trump empire is its resilience. Traditional businesses fail when they lose customers, face legal challenges, or suffer reputation damage. The Trump Organization seems to grow stronger with each crisis, each controversy, each legal problem. It's built like a system that was designed to thrive on chaos rather than merely survive it. The succession planning represents the ultimate evolution of the family business model. Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and other family members have been integrated into operations in ways that ensure continuity regardless of what happens to the patriarch. The empire is no longer dependent on one person's success. It's become a dynasty with multiple leaders and infinite expansion possibilities. The technology integration shows how the empire adapts to changing markets. From social media platforms to NFT collections to cryptocurrency ventures, the Trump Organization embraces new technologies not as experimental side projects, but as core business development opportunities. The name that once appeared on buildings now appears on digital assets that exist only in virtual space. The political dimension adds complexity that would challenge constitutional scholars. The Trump empire operates simultaneously, as a private business seeking profit and a political organization seeking power. The two objectives often overlap in ways that create both opportunities and complications, but the organization has learned to navigate these conflicts with remarkable success. Looking forward, the Trump empire appears positioned for continued expansion regardless of political outcomes. If Trump returns to the presidency, the business benefits from renewed access to power and influence. If he doesn't, the business benefits from martyrdom narratives and opposition positioning. Either way, the empire grows. The legacy that Elizabeth and Fred Trump created with borrowed money and borrowed time has become something unprecedented in American business history. A family enterprise that's simultaneously a real estate company, a media empire, a luxury brand, a political organization, and a cultural phenomenon. It generates billions in revenue, employs thousands of people, and influences everything from international diplomacy to domestic politics. The boy from Queens, who inherited his father's ambition and his mother's determination, has built something that transcends traditional business success. The Trump Organization has become proof that in America, the right combination of audacity, marketing genius, and perfect timing can transform a single family's ambition into a global empire that reshapes not just skylines, but entire cultures. From 1923 to billions, from an $800 loan to a $4 billion empire, from Elizabeth and Fred's modest construction company to Donald's global brand. The Trump Organization represents the ultimate American business story. Controversial, compelling, and completely unprecedented. And most remarkably of all, after a century of building, the empire shows no signs of slowing down. The foundation laid in Queens has become a skyscraper that reaches around the world, and the story that started with a widow and her teenage son continues to write new chapters every single day.